Did you know Manchester City pulled off a tactical masterstroke against Newcastle that could redefine their season? Stick around, because this first leg of the League Cup semi-finals was packed with drama, strategy and moments that will have Premier League fans buzzing. Let's dive in. At the first leg of the League Cup semi-finals, we saw two matches. First up was Newcastle versus Manchester City. In my predictions, I mentioned that Newcastle might have the upper hand. However, Newcastle failed to capitalise on their first half advantage, as they couldn't convert their chances into goals. I expected them to score, but they didn't, which was the biggest difference in my prediction. Looking back, I thought Manchester City's vulnerability to high balls meant they should deploy their tall German player for a targeted strategy. Instead, they started with Yoane Wissa, who missed several big opportunities. In contrast, Manchester City scored as soon as they attacked, with a goal from their winger, Antoine Semenyo, who proved to be their saviour. I'll also have a dedicated transfer commentary on him later. Despite this, Newcastle did dominate early on, exposing Manchester City's defensive flaws. Just 4 minutes into the game, Newcastle had a quick counter-attack for a half chance, but Wissa missed it completely. We also saw Newcastle winning the momentum in fast-paced exchanges. Manchester City's starting lineup lacked a controlling defensive midfielder, with Nico O'Reilly filling in that role. O'Reilly, traditionally a midfielder who previously played as a left-back for Manchester City, used a box-to-box approach. However, he isn't the type of player who controls the tempo, holds his area, or dictates play like a typical number 6. His skills in distributing and switching play are mediocre, with most of his movements involving pushing forward or dropping back, rather than holding positions. As a result, Manchester City couldn't maintain possession. Of course, Pep Guardiola might have had a plan. Playing away against Newcastle, it's expected that they'd face pressure and Newcastle's quick attacks. Forcing possession might not be effective. Instead, starting with younger, dynamic midfielders to hold the line while relying on the wingers to break through seemed reasonable. O'Reilly's coverage is solid, and his aerial ability in the midfield is strong. This approach made sense, even if the first half was underwhelming, with Newcastle having several chances. Luckily, their rotation affected their finishing. Manchester City waited until the second half, when Newcastle began to tire and their pressing lessened. With more space, Manchester City created a double wing effect. A cross from the left flank found Antoine Semenyo on the right, who slotted in the goal, giving them the lead at the 60-minute mark. After taking the lead, Rodri was brought in to control the tempo, and Ryan Cherki's sharper play turned the momentum in Manchester City's favour, allowing them to hold their advantage. Later, when the tall German player and Nick O'Reilly were introduced, Newcastle were already too disorganised to respond. In the final minute of stoppage time, Manchester City extended their lead, again through Semenyo, who helped in the build-up, delivering a pass into the half-space. Cherki used his magic feet to slot a through ball into the box, resulting in an easy tap-in. Good news also came with Rayan Ait-Nouri's return to the lineup. Ultimately, Guardiola's gamble paid off. There were early risks, but they were necessary. Newcastle's physicality in the first half meant that starting Rodri immediately would have been suicidal. Using younger players first to hold the line was better than relying on Rodri from the get-go. Despite the danger, this stopgap measure allowed Manchester City to navigate safely. As for the disallowed corner goal due to offside, the ball didn't interfere with the goalkeeper. The moment it went in, the keeper had no chance to save it, and Haaland wasn't between the shooter and the goal, meaning there was no interference. However, as I mentioned in the Liverpool corner controversy, regardless of interference, if you're in an offside position and make a movement in the shooting line, it's called offside. The focus shifted to whether Haaland was offside. The lines indicated he was, but visually it seemed unclear. Here's another comparison. In the other semi-final first leg, Arsenal's corner goal was similar. Victor Gyökeres was in an offside position and close to the shooting line. Why was it allowed? The difference was that Haaland clearly moved into the shooting line, while Gyökeres was only preparing to enter but pulled back. Hence, one was disallowed, the other legal. Moving on to Chelsea versus Arsenal. The prediction was that the away team might secure a draw or even win, but the scoreline didn't match. I expected fewer goals. The high number of dead ball situations played a role. I anticipated Arsenal scoring from a corner, given Chelsea's weak corner defence. However, Chelsea also scored from a corner. Their corner goal conversion rate this season has been strong, but Arsenal's goal was cleaner and sharper. The deciding factor returned to defensive performance in open play, where Arsenal was stronger. Chelsea's defence was shaky, compounded by goalkeeping errors. Arsenal didn't have a significant advantage and Chelsea had more possession time, but Arsenal scrambled to win a corner in the 7th minute, resulting in a classic set-piece goal. The second goal also came from a dead ball extension, a throw-in. Ben White quickly threw the ball and overlapped into the box, crossing in and catching Chelsea's goalkeeper Robert Sanchez off guard, allowing Victor Gyökeres to tap in. Arsenal recently hired a new throw-in coach, and it's showing results. Arteta knows how to bring in specialists to address his team's weaknesses, a sign of great leadership. As for the game's flow, both teams seem solely focused on winning possession, with constant back-and-forth turnovers, struggling against pressing, but persisting in dominating possession and pressuring opponents. Chelsea had more instances of linking up attacks to shots, but failed to convert. Arsenal had fewer, but their first attack resulted in a goal, reflecting the gap in defensive quality. Chelsea lacked key players like Casadei, Gusto and James. Arsenal fielded their strongest lineup. New manager Mauricio Pochettino stuck to a traditional back four, keeping it simple and suitable for big matches. Whether he'll experiment against lower-tier teams remains to be seen. Chelsea's build-up play still owes much to Graham Potter, but Pochettino's timely substitutions helped them recover. Arsenal extended their lead at the 49th minute, and by the 51st, Alejandro Garnacho was subbed in, leading to a goal by the 56th. The goal had an element of luck, pressuring and capitalizing on a corner, but early substitutions allowed informed players time to shine. Chelsea's subsequent setbacks were mainly due to defensive issues. Opponents found it too easy to turn and penetrate the box, with interceptions and positioning poorly executed, a result of defensive limitations. Additionally, Emiliano Martinez's late runs into the box and deliveries showcase the bench's quality. Arsenal's depth this season allows them to balance Premier League and League Cup commitments. Bench players like Noni Madueke and Iberechi Ez provide options. Arteta seems intent on managing rotations, starting strong against Forest, rotating in the Champions League and returning to the first exit against Manchester United, alternating accordingly. Victor Gyökeres had a pivotal role with assists and a goal, but much of his impact came against weaker defences. With the second leg still weeks away and variables like injuries, predictions are better left closer to the match. Thanks, bye.